homebrewers, and welcome to my channel. So I am starting the process of making a rice wine, and the common term is sake, even though there are so many different types, but sake is the one that most people know. So I'm doing things a bit differently because I'm not going to be using glutinous rice, otherwise known as sticky rice. I actually found out that long grain rice, like the stuff I've got here for 45p a kilo, contains more carbohydrates. So my theory is I'm going to get, even if it goes slightly wrong, I'm still going to get a really good conversion of carbohydrates to sugars. So I'm using this just to start off with. Now I'm going to be fermenting in a bucket. Mine happens to be a 2-gallon bucket, which is pretty helpful. Now this is going to allow for the rice, the water that I'm going to be adding in, and the extra rice, all to have enough room in here to get a good final product. Now because I'm going to be adding water, and I don't happen to have really expensive mineral water or access to it currently, I mean I could go and buy it, but that adds a lot of cost, I'm going to be using yeast nutrient. Now it's mainly there for the yeast because the mold shouldn't need nutrients, it's got the rice. So it's just for the yeast. Obviously, if you have fantastic high mineralized water from a spring, you can use that. But I'm going to be using it. And then last, the thing that you need, which is absolutely imperative, is the koji spore and a yeast. Now I've got myself Chinese yeast spores, which I got on Amazon. I got a whole bunch of them for £12, including the delivery. So if you're looking for them in kind of a bulk, I'll put the link down in the description below so you can go to Amazon and get them if you want. So let's start this process and let's get started. So one of the reasons why I chose just plain long grain rice instead of using the glutinous rice is the fact that this is no fuss. You don't have to spend hours rinsing and soaking and pre-doing, and you just cook it in a pan as normal. Now you can steam it, but that's going to take anywhere up to an hour plus, roughly. It says 45 minutes if you have the proper thing. You can use a rice cooker, but for me, in a pan on the side works just as well. Now I am going to clean this with boiled water and rinse it off, because all the carbohydrates that we need for the koji to inoculate it are in the grains. So that's pretty helpful and pretty handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, rinse this off and do the other batch, and I'll see you shortly. So my other 500 gram batch of rice is now finished cooking. I've went ahead and I've rinsed the first 500 grams. Now as you can see, this is rather light and fluffy. It doesn't stick together and it comes apart rather easily, which means when we add the koji, it's going to be a lot easier to work the spores in. Whereas if we didn't rinse it off, it's just a gelatinous sort of blub. That's the reason why I am rinsing the rice. So it's easier to work it in. I will lose a little bit of carbohydrate, but at the same time, the grains pretty much contain all the carbs. So not worried about the little bit on the outside. That's going to make our job a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse this off, and then we'll be back. So our kilo of rice is now cooked. It took hardly any time whatsoever compared to doing it properly, I suppose. But now we've got to prepare our koji. So I got my yeast balls. I already gave it a bit of a bash just to break it up a bit. And we want this into a powder. So basically, I think the easiest way, you can use a fruit blender or a pestle and mortar. I'm going to use my e-cig and just beat it. Let's see what we got. So yeah, it is a pretty fine powder. It's already, the bag's split slightly more, but it is pretty much dust now. Just bash it a bit more. There we go, pretty much all powdery. Whoop. And I still have my, oh, there we go, still have my e-cig, just didn't put it on correctly. Might as well have a bit. Bubblegum. So, with our koji now prepared, lovingly by beating it with my e-cig, you could use a hammer or blender or anything else really. It just happened to be on hand and heavy. So, I've seen a lot of people trying to stack it up, but we want to mix this in kind of evenly. So I've got my surface, it is cleaned. I do like my nice clean work surface, always stick to it. So I'm actually just going to dump out my rice. You can see it's still a little bit gelatinous. Spread this bad boy out. Since it's a little bit too hot to handle. And fun enough, I'm going to let this cool down and we'll be back when I can actually touch this without burning my hands. So, by dumping this out onto my worktop, which was sterilized and then wiped clean with fresh water and stuff like that, so it is clean. We have now cooled this down to a point where I can actually touch it. My hands have been washed and are clean. You can see it's a little sticky. So now comes the best part, the part that we've been waiting for. And that is to inoculate it, hopefully, with our koji spores. So, I got myself my bag, which is pretty much ground down into a powder. And I'm just gonna rip it open. He says rip it open, but what he really means is open it carefully. There we go. And it's pretty much a dust. So now I get to sprinkle it liberally into here, drop a few bits. And there we go. A bit of a lump there, but never mind. Doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. And now we're just gonna mix this all up by hand, hence why it's nice and cool now. And this actually worked really well. It was a lot quicker than waiting it to cool down in mass. I'm going to have to do it in 2 batches, obviously, but there we go. So no need to do that layering thing after waiting hours. This took literally 5 minutes to cool down doing it this way. And there is one blob, like so, of hopefully inoculated rice. I know it's not hot enough to kill it because I can use it with my hands rather easily. So this is why I rinsed the rice. Could have rinsed it a bit more, but live and learn. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into my bucket, but I'm going to rinse my hands off because I don't want to get rice everywhere. So the bucket's rather simple. I sterilized it just like a demijohn. They say you don't have to be as OCD, which is really helpful. But still, I sterilized it and rinsed it. Doesn't smell of bleach, so that's when you know it's good to go. I can put this over here, so now I can just dump this in. I didn't want to put it on my side, since I didn't sterilize the underneath of the bucket. There we go. So now my bucket has a load of rice in it that is pre-inoculated. Just put the lid on. And now I'm going to do the same with this other one. It's still pretty warm. So spread it out. Of course you can let it cool slowly, but this seems to work, which is actually taken from the traditional way of making sake, so they know something about cooling things quickly. Okay, I don't have a very warm room with stagnant air, but at the same time, it should work pretty much the same. So now I'll be back in another 5 minutes to inoculate this half. Again, it's only been a 5 minutes-ish, if that, and this has already cooled down, so I can touch it and it's not too warm. My hands have again been washed. It says you don't have to be as sanitary as you would with fermenting, but it's just a habit, so why break a habit? It's best not to take the chance. So I've got myself my other half, or one, bowl, and I'm just going to spread this around. There we go, and I've got a little bit of the dust elsewhere, so I'm going to add this dust in as well. Then again, I'm going to work it around with my hand and put it in the box. So lift my lid up. So let's work this in. So let us add this to our lovely pot down here, just out of the way. And there we go. So I'm just going to get cleaned up, and we'll be right back. So the cleanup is, well, it didn't take any time at all. I got a couple of plastic things to clean up and a pan, so pretty low maintenance and pretty easy to do. So I've got my upcycled mayonnaise tub, which holds 10 litres of liquid, or in my case 1 gallon of rice, as it turns out by volume. So there is the rice. It pretty much takes up half of this upcycled fermenter. And that's it pretty much done. That is, you can now just leave this for 35 days and you can collect the liquid from the bottom and like squeeze the rice, and you will have your own rice wine. But because I've gone to the trouble of putting it in a large fermenter, and I will be adding water to it, I'm going to show you how to turn the simple one into more. So I hope you join me for that. Hence why we've got the yeast nutrient in the water. So don't forget to rate, comment, like, subscribe, and of course share. And I hope to see you in the next video. Catch you later, guys and girls. Bye.